Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Alessus here, and I am here to give you a special report on Group 25 of the Alpha League online tournament for the Warhammer 40,000 tabletop game. This is Season 13, and the reason that we are today concentrating on Group 25 is because I am in it, and I am currently leading the group with 2 victories under my belt, so I like to bask in the glory before I inevitably get pulled down into the muck. We have a somewhat varied selection of factions in this pod, with 3 different types of Imperial Space Marines, Imperial Knights, and Necrons, representing the only non-Imperial faction. We have myself playing the Salamanders chapter. We have SalzPvP, who is playing the Blood Angels chapter. And we have MrBarlow, who is playing as a Space Wolves Successor chapter. Survivor 12 is playing as the Imperial Knights. And kamkazekid is playing as the Necrons. I might decide to do other groups in the tournament, but I would like to enlighten everyone that I do not claim to be the best of 40k players, and I am certainly not a well-known ITC player, so my opinions are my own, and they may be as misinformed as anyone else's, and I might see or underestimate things, and I might overestimate some other things based on personal biases. But without further ado, we shall take a look at the first list. This is Kamkaze's list. He has decided to play Necrons. And, surprisingly enough, at least according to this list, he has decided to play as the Zarkan dynasty, instead of the more commonly seen, at least nowadays, pre-game, 6-inch move, everything is objective secured, custom dynasty. He has decided for his HQs to bring a Chronomancer in the first patrol. He has brought a Chronomancer with an Atropic Lance and the Veil of Darkness relic, as well as Illuminor Xeras, a special character who, depending on how the judges have ruled a certain thing, in whichever tournament you're taking him, can be currently extremely good or of middling importance. Unfortunately for him, he had missed the fact that Alpha League had ruled that due to the Silent King's Menhirs not having the resurrection protocols, that they could not be resurrected by Illuminor Xeras, which is the ruling that I was talking about earlier. And since he had missed it, he thought that that would be something that he could do, which would, now that he knows, and he has been informed of the fact, he would probably switch Illuminor Xeras out, as, in at least my own opinion, he does not do enough to justify his cost if he cannot resurrect the Menhirs. But, moving on, in his troop slots for the patrol, he has a unit of Immortals, 10 of them. Generally, you see them as a 5-man minimum squad, but 10 is, I don't think, overtly surprising either. All of them have the Gauss Blaster, as generally expected. And he is bringing a Catan Shard of the Nightbringer, starting with the Antimatter Meteor power. And that is the entirety of that patrol. His second patrol is slightly more interesting, in that for his HQ he has brought a Catacomb Command Barge, and he has given him both a Warlord trait and a relic, the relic being a Void Reaper, and the Warlord trait being Enduring Will. I believe this is a fairly common combination at least the Enduring Will seems very popular as a warlord trait to give the Catacomb Command Barge. And the Catacomb Command Barge is one of those HQ choices that are quite versatile in what they can do, whether it is enduring damage or whether it is doing damage themselves. For his troops, he has decided to bring 2 lots of Necron warriors, one 15-man and one 10-man with the Gauss Reaper. The Gauss Reaper being, I believe, a 12-inch AP -2, 1 damage with decent amount of shots. I believe it is Assault 2, if not Assault 3 even. For the elites, he's bringing another shard of the C'tans, and this time a Void Dragon. So 2 named C'tan shards, which I believe is, once again, not the most uncommon of picks, but I have seen many many say that a named C'tan and a Transcendent C'tan would be the more common choice. Fortunately for him, the Void Dragon will most certainly prove useful in the Imperial Knights match, but unfortunately, both the Blood Angels and the Salamanders are an entirely infantry-based army, and while the Space Wolves do have exactly 1 vehicle. He also is bringing 2 units of 3 Canada Scarab Swarms, quick and easy. Many a Necron player likes to have that little bit of zooming around Scarab Swarm bases. Nothing exceptional there, but still very solid, very cheap, fast attack choice. They would obviously be better were they objective secured, but which I do not believe they are, since he did not take the Custom Dynasty. But still, a usable unit, especially for the one of the Necron secondaries. I believe Treasure of the Aeons is the one. Or I believe it is Ancient Machinery that I'm thinking of. Regardless, should not underestimate the utility of them, though they are generally, they have a decent amount of wounds, but they will, more than any concentration of firepower, will easily wipe them out. And to round up the list, as many might have guessed by his inclusion of Illuminor Xerath, he is also bringing the Silent King along with his 2 Menhirs, and because of that, he has the CP to spend on this double patrol Supreme Command combination. And while the Silent King is as imposing as ever, with two Menhirs and a decent amount of shooting by himself, if you're in engagement range of the Silent King, you are always fight last. Just everyone. He has a very decent melee profile, and well, overall he's quite a tough cookie, but he's also 400 points by himself. So overall, from personal experience of the new Necrons in Nephilim, this list seems very light on bodies. Even with the 26 total warriors and the 10 immortals, it just seems not much on the field of battle. Obviously, a lot of his points are being taken up in both the C'tan shards and the Silent King, and Illuminor Xerath himself is 145 points, so not cheap by any means. So, leaving him quite light on bodies, in my opinion. Unfortunately, unfortunately for him, none of the other lists in the pod have decided to bring a Psyker with them. So he does not need to be concerned of getting a random smite through to one of his C'tan shards, dealing 3 mortal wounds, and suddenly he can be one-turned. There are factions that can attempt to one-turn the C'tan shard. For example, the Blood Angels player will most certainly have the ability to pick up Hammer of Wrath into the Catan Shard with all of his jump packs. But whether or not that would be enough to deal 3 mortal wounds so that he can be either of the Catan Shards can be one-turned is a question of, well, I wouldn't give it great chances of working with just 5 jump pack bodies. But it's still there. It is possible. Unfortunately, however, I feel that aside from the knights, the other lists in the other factions are capable of enduring enough that they can simply kill everything else, including the Silent King, around the Catan Shards, and simply ignore them. Obviously, ignoring a Catan Shard can be quite a dangerous prospect with the amount of mortal wounds that they can dish out. But assuming that they don't go crazy, and their opponents are smart, the Catan Shards, due to being monsters and not therefore not being the most maneuverable things, can, well, let's just say that it will be a shame if he has to leave a Catan Shard sitting on an objective because he has no one else to put there. So I foresee that the Necron player will face quite a bit of trouble. My prediction is that he will go 1 and 3, winning against the Imperial Knights, but losing against everyone else. Moving on to Survivor and the Imperial Knights player. And he has taken what I was quite surprised when I looked at the list, and maybe it's just me, but when I heard Imperial Knights, I expected to see 1, maybe 2 of the larger knight variants, and then a number of Armingers that would be benefiting from the buffs. That appears to not be the case here. He has decided to be of the House Griffith of the Questor Imperialis, which basically grants all of his knights the shock assault rule from Space Marines, and he has decided that he is going to bring 3 large knights: a Knight Crusader with a Stormspear rocket pod, a thermal cannon, an Iron Hail heavy stubber, as well as an Avenger Gatling gun, which is not, for some reason, mentioned here. He is also bringing a Knight Gallant, who is the only character and the only relic bearer in the entire army, as he is a High Monarch. He has the Sanctuary, as well as the Ion Bulwark Warlord trait, which means that he has a 4-up invulnerable save, both in melee and in shooting. He is a Knight Seneschal, and which means that he is quite capable of, well, I don't think there is any single unit in the pod, aside from the 2 Catan Shards who are face capped, of course. But aside from them, I don't think there is any unit that the Knight Gallant could not kill on the charge in one go, assuming average rolls. The Silent King might be a little tough, but I think even him would fall. Suppose the question is whether he has his menhirs or not. And then he is bringing a Knight Preceptor. So, a Knight Preceptor is basically a chaplain, but in knight form. And he has decided to bring the Knight's Faith, the Oath of Justice, and the Virtue of Courage. So that is a 5-up Feel No Pain, exploding 6s to hit, as well as acting as if you were 2 more honor points than what they currently are. And he has bought 3 Warglaves in a single unit, as well as a Helverin with the auto cannon. And that is the list. 7 knights, 3 big, 4 small. I have faced this list already. He was my first opponent in the pod. And we ended up as an 84-40. Unfortunately, it was the perfect storm for my opponent in the sense that the match that we played, which I believe was Recover the Relics, meant that I got to designate his precious objective, and he got to designate my precious objective, and the terrain was not great, for he could not really... Only the Knight Crusader, who stayed at the very back, could really hide of the 3 big knights, and still be somewhat effective at least. And I could move his precious objective in such a way that he would have to go a long way around a ruin and an obstacle, like this two block of like what appeared to be some kind of cargo stuff. Basically, a very long walk around either way he wanted to go. And I also have some forward deploy, therefore I could immediately start contesting that objective from the get-go. And we managed to roll that he started the first turn, and the only thing that he could see was a unit of Devastators and a unit of Blade Guard veterans. And the Blade Guard veterans simply decided to spend 2 CP to bodyguard the Devastators. And with the Blade Guard veterans being both in cover and being covered by an Apothecary's Feel No Pain, and some bad luck on his shooting as he was going through Dense as well, it did not end well for him. And he tried to surge forward and bring his full might to bear in melee, but after my 3rd turn, there were no knights left on the field. And you will see shortly that it was never going to be a good matchup for him, I feel. And as such, I do think that all of the other lists in the pod are capable of dealing with the knights. They're not overwhelmed by them. The knights do not have the toughness to be impervious to any of the lists. As well as the knights with 3 armies that have either a 3-up or better, and Armor of Contempt, or the Necrons, who simply have 2 Catan shards, one of which is the Void Dragon. I feel that, unfortunately for the Imperial Knights, there are no good matchups for him. And I predict that he will go 0-4 in this group. Obviously, if he feels incensed by these words, he may prove me wrong, and that would certainly be an interesting thing to see. But unfortunately for him, he seems to have drawn the short end of the stick here. Moving on, we have SalzPvP and his Blood Angels. He is bringing a single detachment, a battalion to be exact. And as you can see from the brief scroll over, there is quite a lot of jump pack in this particular list. So he has surprisingly few characters. He has Commander Dante, who is the Warlord, gaining him an extra CP, but not using a Warlord trait on him. He has a Sanguinary Priest with the Soul Wardens for some mortal wound protection. He has the Teeth of Terra, and he obviously has a jump pack on him, making him a very useful piece with his ability of putting someone into Assault Doctrine, or spending 1 CP and being able to do that twice. The Teeth of Terra, I'll be honest, seems a little excessive, I feel. As I don't... Well, I mean, the Sanguinary Priest will more than likely end up in combat eventually. But I feel that it's a little... Maybe he could have used the 1 CP better. But I mean, I suppose he does get 1 CP just for having Commander Dante as his Warlord, so... Who am I to disagree with that choice? For his troops, he has decided to go light with 2 Assault Intercessor Squad and an Incursor Squad, and no special upgrades on any of them. But it is the elite slot where we have the most interesting, or well, the most dangerous part of his army, as with many Space Marine armies. He is bringing 1 5-man jump pack unit of Death Company Marines, 4 Thunderhammers, and 1 Company Marine with a bolt pistol and a chainsword. I am surprised that he has kept the bolt pistol. I am not sure whether or not he could have changed that for another chainsword, or whether he did, but hey-ho. He is bringing a Sanguinary Ancient, who has been given both the Rights of War, as well as the relic Wrath of Baal. So he, any jump pack unit that starts its movement within 6 inches of the Sanguinary Ancient will get +2 to their movement characteristic, I believe, from the Wrath of Baal standard. And Rights of War is a 6-inch bauble of objective secure for core and characters. So the Sanguinary Ancient is another very useful support piece. And yeah. And then we have Sanguinary Guard. 1 10-man unit, 1 and 2 5-man units, all with the Encarmine swords. So strength 5, AP 3, flat 2 damage. And Sanguinary Guard, if you're unaware, they have a 2-up save. They have the jump pack for a 12-inch movement. The Angelus Vulcan is basically a slightly upgraded version from a Stormbolter. And they have the Death Mask, which means that they are -1 to hit, I believe, in melee. I'm not sure if that counts for shooting. As well as they simply have a datasheet ability that if they are within a close enough proximity to the Warlord, they gain a +1 to hit. So they are hitting on 2s most of the time because, well, the Sanguinary Guard wouldn't want to not be near the Warlord, and if they are not near the Warlord, they have probably been given the Chapter Master rerolls from Commander Dante, and then hitting on 3s but rerolling everything is, good enough, I suppose. And just so he doesn't run out of jump packs, he has also decided to bring a 10-man squad of Vanguard veterans, with Lightning Claw Storm Shield being the most common, but then also Lightning Claw Thunderhammers. 4 Thunderhammers, in fact. And I'm not sure how to feel about the Lightning Claw Storm Shield. I know that was the go-to for a Space Marine Vanguard veteran, and it's still good. With the Armor Contempt upgrade, it meant that a lot of people are putting more and more points into armor-penetrating weapons, so having that 4-up invul can be quite good. And, having a 2-up save out in the open is also very good. But I'm not sure if it's worth it. Especially not sure if it's worth that many shields. But, as I said, I am simply some random dude on the internet who decided to record a video about this, so we shall see how well he will do before making any permanent judgment on the fact. And then, taking advantage of the assault squads being cheaper, he has decided to bring 2 units of assault squads with 2 flamers in each, the sergeant wielding dual lightning claws, and 3 men with chainsword bolt pistol. And I would have no trouble believing that these guys are going to be shunted into deep strength so that they can drop on in and just auto-complete Nephilim data and maybe do something. But the real meat, obviously, is in the Sanguinary Guard, the Vanguard veterans, and the Death Company. The Death Company being particularly dangerous if you are unaware of the fact that they can be given a pre-game move. And yeah, this is a very dangerous list, and I feel that this Blood Angel player, SalzPvP, I would predict that he is going to be winning the pod with a 4-0 record. As I think this is going to be personally going to be my worst matchup on the list, as well as the fact that Blood Angels are in a really, really good spot right now, and the Encarmine Sword is very much the correct weapon currently to be fighting Space Marines with Strength 5 being generally enough to wound them on 3s and then wound them on 2s because you're a Blood Angel and you get +1 to wound in melee. And then you've got AP3, which is forcing this, or you might even have AP4 because you're in Assault Doctrine, forcing a regular Space Marine on a 6-up save and killing them instantly if they fail. Yes, I believe that Salz has a very, I would say, typical in a sense of a Blood Angel list, but being a typical list certainly does not mean that it is a bad list. In fact, this is probably, as I said, a list that will go 4-0. I think his most difficult opponent will be the Space Wolves, due to we're going to talk about them momentarily. I think he will be able to very much outpressure me with his movement. He's also able to easily go around the Catan with all of his movement, and he will most certainly chop up anything that he catches in melee. And he has already played his game against the Imperial Knights, and it was a close-run affair for a bit. And had some things not gone his way, it could have easily gone against him. But in the end, he managed to prevail with a 97 to, I believe, 78 or 79 score for the Imperial Knights. But it was still a hard-fought battle for him, but he won it eventually fairly convincingly after, I believe, on the 3rd turn where he managed to overwhelm the Imperial Knights, or possibly the 2nd turn. And then, moving on to the Space Wolves, we have, as a successor chapter, they have taken the Born Heroes Whirlwind of Rage combination. So Born Heroes is whenever he charges, he gets +1 to hit in melee, and Whirlwind of Rage is whenever he charges, is charged, or heroically intervenes, he has exploding 6s in melee, which is the usual combination that you take, and it is a very potent one as well. But he has something that I, at least, did not expect from a Space Wolves list, which is at the very bottom, he has brought a super heavy auxiliary detachment of an Imperial Knight, specifically a Knight Castellan, which offers him quite the array of firepower on a quite tough of a target. And this is the reason that I feel that he is going to give the Blood Angels the best run for his money, is because he certainly has enough power in his punching with a 10-man unit of Wolf Guard with Lightning Claw Storm Shield, our Lightning Claw Combi Melta, as well as Wolf Guard in Terminator armor with Combi Melta Lightning Claw, and a 5-man squad of Wolfen, and the Chapter Master being on a jump pack with the Combi Melta, Thunderhammer, the Armor Russ giving fight last, as well as the Warlord trait that allows him to advance and charge, and once he has completed a deed of actually making a charge and then surviving afterwards, he will give out a bubble of advance and charge. And so the Space Wolves both generally has the melee power to at least contend with the Blood Angels, as well as the firepower of the Knight Castellan can hurt the Blood Angels, even Sanguinary Guard, quite badly if they are not careful. And so that is why I feel that the Space Wolves are going to give the Blood Angels the most trouble. I think that the fact that the Blood Angels is still very mobile and very, very good in combat, even better than the Space Wolves are in combat, 1-to-1. I feel that that is going to give the Blood Angels the edge in this matchup, and they will win it. But I would give the Space Wolves definitely the best chance to contend with the Blood Angels. But returning to the list itself, we do have some supporting elements to the things that I already alluded to. He has 2 Incursor squads rather than just the one, and 1 Assault Intercessor squad that has a plasma pistol on the Sergeant, because, I don't know, he wants to kill his Sergeant for some reason. He does have one squad of Eliminators with the Instigator Bolt Carbine on the Sergeant, and 2 Last Fusils on the 2 Eliminators for some nicely durable skirmishing unit. Not that they're gonna get shot, which is when they're at their most durable, but oh well. And he does also bring a Primaris Chaplain on bike with the Catechism of Fire and Exhortation of Rage as he has been upgraded to be a Master of Sanctity as well. I am a little iffy on the Catechism of Fire. He could have brought the Canticle of Hate. He could have brought the Litany of Faith, I believe, which is the 6-inch aura of giving a 5 up Feel No Pain against mortal wounds to give him some mortal wound protection, as that seems to be... I feel that that's somewhat important. Or he could have, for example, taken the Mantra of Strength on the Chaplain to make him at least a little bit more useful, even without having given him any relic. The Catechism of Fire, +1 to wound when you're shooting at the closest target, can be quite good, and I can certainly see... But he is bringing Melta Guns as his most common... as his most devastating shooting aside from the Knight Castellan. And, well, I mean, he does have 2 Last Fusils, but that's 2 shots, and they're also Strength 8. And I feel that the +1 to wound, it just is a little bit wasted in this list. And this is the other game that I played, and I played this very recently. In fact, I played it today on the Saturday that I am recording this on, and unfortunately for him, I think that I was going to be his worst matchup with my Salamanders, as he packed his melee power into Lightning Claw, and for those who don't know, the Salamander chapter tactic has been changed to the enemy never being able to reroll wounds against us. So suddenly he went from Strength 4 but rerolling all wounds to Strength 4 and not rerolling any wounds and still being damage 1. And Salamanders have many a stratagem that can help out in that sort of engagement. So unfortunately for him, he underestimated the power that the Salamanders could bring in, as well as he underestimated their durability. And he did not underestimate the firepower, as he was very well maneuvering his Knight Castellan away from any Melta Guns that might taught his way. But unfortunately, the Melta Guns were not needed to kill the Knight Castellan. Rather, they would turn their attention to the Wolf Guard and the Wolfen when they finally made their charge and stayed out in the open to be shot. And let's just say that the Wolf Guard and the Wolfen, even with Storm Shields, which they didn't have, as he decided to combat squad the Combi Melta out of the Lightning Claw Storm Shields, so these lads simply got melted by Devastators wielding multi-meltas and rerolling all hits and wounds because Salamanders. But as I said, somewhat of an unusual Space Wolf successor list, I feel. I did not expect them to have a super heavy auxiliary knight as a ranged support, but it certainly makes sense. I certainly don't disagree with the choice, and I think that the list works. There are a couple of things that I would probably change, including, the Chaplain's Catechism of Fires being one. Why is there a random plasma pistol? You could have given him a power sword, my dude. That sort of thing, but still, I would say a very good list. I can see what he's going for, but yeah, and that is the Space Wolves list. Granted, I am not the most knowledgeable of Space Wolves list. I have rarely fought them, so maybe this is the new meta Space Wolves list, and I am simply not aware of it. But regardless, we shall be moving on to the last list of the video, which is my own. And as stated, I am playing Salamanders, and I am bringing a single battalion with full stack on the HQs, as I'm bringing a Primaris Chaplain, not on a bike, just a walking man, a Primaris Lieutenant with a bolt pistol and a Mastercraft Power Sword, as well as Vulcan Heston, who, well, his primary contribution to this particular list is being able to give full hit and wound rerolls to any Melta or Flamer weapons. As, you know, he's got a 3-up invul and a heavy Flamer, basically, and the Spear of Vulcan, so he can do in melee, but he's here for the buffing rather than that. Same for the Primaris Chaplain. We're bringing a Recitation of Focus, helping out all of those Melta-Guns, as well as Canticle of Hate, because I mostly play Black Templars, and there have been, even with the built-in reroll all charges for Black Templars, I feel that Canticle of Hate is something that I simply must have if at all able, because the +2 to charges and the +3 inches to pile in and consolidation move can come very, very handy. And obviously he has been upgraded to be the Master of Sanctity, and he is the Warlord, though he does not have a Warlord trait nor a Relic, because, well, he is the Warlord because he's the most likely to survive out of all of the characters that I do have. The Primaris Lieutenant has been given a relic called the Vulcan Sigil, which increases his base attacks by 1, and once per game he can lift up the Vulcan Sigil in the fight phase, and himself and every core unit within 6 will gain 1 additional attack per model for that fight phase. And obviously he brings the reroll 1s to wound, which is also very nice to have. For the troops, we have 2 units of Assault Intercessors and 1 unit of Incursors. No special upgrades on them. Cheap, but very useful in their own way. And then in the elite slots, we're bringing a 5-man squad of Aggressors with Flamestorm Gauntlets. And these guys have were certainly the MVP in the game against the Space Wolves, as their durability was quite a lot for the Space Wolves to deal with, as well as the threat of their Flamers. Then we have a 5-man squad of Blade Guard Veterans. They are Blade Guard Veterans. Not much to say about that. I feel that Blade Guard Veterans are, in the Salamanders, they are probably one of the better units compared to any other Space Marine chapter, because you can give them an additional point of strength, and any 6s to wound double the weapon damage. And I feel that just gives the Blade Guard Veterans just an extra bit of oomph in their fight, which I felt that was lacking in other Space Marine chapters that I have run them in. We have the Company Champion, who has been upgraded to be the Chapter Champion, and he has been given the Blade of Triumph, and he has been given the Imperium Sword, so he has rerolls on his charges. Whenever he charges or heroically intervenes, he gains an extra pip of strength and an extra pip of attack, and the Blade of Triumph is +3 AP3 flat 3 damage. So yeah, he's quite the killer, with 7 attacks hitting on 2s and all sorts of special rules, such as -1 to hit in melee, and always fight first if he's within engagement range of a character, and reroll all wounds against a character, because, you know, why not? We have also the Primaris Apothecary, with the Chief Apothecary Selfless Healer combo, so he's here to heal for flat 3 and resurrect a guy for free, rather than having to spend CP on that, because, you know, value. And then 2 units of Vanguard Veterans, 5-mans. We have Chainsword Lightning Claw on full complement on 1 with jump packs, and the other one has Chainsword Lightning Claw and Lightning Claw Relic Blade on the Sergeant. The Relic Blade is here because I had 10 points to spare, and I couldn't think of any better use for it. We also have an Assault Marine squad of a 5-man. We have a Flamer. We are bringing an Eviscerator just to see what if it's actually worth it. So far, middling success. Dual lightning claws on the sergeant and 2 regular lads. And then for the heavies, we have a Devastator squad with an Armorian Cherub, and obviously the sergeant has a Signum, a chainsword, and a bolt gun, and 4 multi-meltas on the Devastator Marines. And then a full 6-man brick of Eradicators with 2 multi-meltas and heavy melta rifles for the 4 others. So we are packing quite the amount of firepower here. And I completely forgot in the Space Wolves section, but I think that the Space Wolves will beat the Imperial Knights, and they will beat the Necrons, but they have already lost against me, and I think the Blood Angels will be able to come out on top against him, so he will be going 2-2, and I believe that I will be going 3-1, as I will I think I will lose the game against the Blood Angels, as I am much, much slower, and he doesn't really have wound rerolls, as far as I'm aware, and he has a very good profile with his Sanguinary Guard to kill Marines. And there's not really much I can do about that, because, well, I mean, obviously, if I get to shoot Melta guns at his Sanguinary Guard, the Sanguinary Guard are, quite in trouble, but I don't see a world where that would be an easy thing to achieve for me. And Salamanders do not have any fallback and shoot stratagems, so even if he doesn't kill the Devastators or the Eradicators, if he simply manages to tag them with his mobility, they are out of commission for at least a turn. And then it is easy to cascade that to be the next turn, and the turn after that, and then he has managed to kill everything else, and then he will come for the Melta guns. But we shall see. So, this was my long-winded, dry way of reviewing the group number 25 of the Alpha League Warhammer 40,000 online TTS tournament, and I wish you a good day.